Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And as always, so glad to have you along with us. How are you? How has your week gone? What have you been up to? Did you draw your Michigan bear or elk tag? You might have drawn a Michigan bear tag, but I bet you didn't draw a Michigan elk tag because nobody does. That's my standard joke. Nobody gets a Michigan elk tag. Just assume you're never going to get a Michigan elk tag. And if God smiles on you and lightning strikes you twice on the top of your head as you're standing on one foot throwing a Frisbee into the sunset, because that's what it's going to take to get a Michigan elk tag, if those things line up and you get your Michigan elk tag, just consider it a bonus. Consider it a blessing. Because nobody gets a Michigan elk tag. Now, I say that knowing somebody gets a Michigan elk tag, but the odds are so astronomically against you getting a Michigan elk tag, why do we even apply? Because if we don't apply, we're never going to get a Michigan elk tag. So you're never going to get a Michigan elk tag, but if you don't apply, you're never going to get a Michigan elk tag. Think about that one for a little bit, right? I have decided the way that I will get my Michigan elk tag is going to be by winning the Pure Michigan Hunt. Every year, 3 people are drawn to win the Pure Michigan Hunt, and one of the biggest parts of that drawing are you get a bull tag for any season. That's how I'm going to get my Michigan elk tag. In the meantime, I will continue to apply for a Michigan elk tag, knowing nobody ever gets a Michigan elk tag. Now, bear tags are a different story. People do get Michigan bear tags. I got one last year. Depending on where you hunt and what season, it might take you 15, 16, 18, 20 years to get one. Or if you do like I do, and you're willing to hunt the 3rd season in the UP, you can get one every 2 or 3 years. So on the numbers of people who applied for Michigan bear tags, there were 73,000 people who applied for Michigan bear tags. 6,300 bear tags were awarded. I hope you were one of them. If you got, say, the 1st season or the 2nd season, your 1st season, your odds are much better than the 3rd season. But I got my bear hunting one day, the 1st day of the 3rd season last year. I got my bear, so it does happen. So there's hope there. The numbers on Michigan elk applications, 60,500 people applied for Michigan elk tags. 60,000 people. 260 elk tags were awarded. So you can see why I say nobody gets a Michigan elk tag. But some people do get Michigan elk tags. And I am amazed every year. And I actually used to be the pseudo MC of the mandatory elk hunter education classes that they had before each elk season. I used to be a part of those. And every year I would ask the question, okay, how many years have you been applying? Raise your hand. Has it been 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And every year there was somebody who'd been applying for more than 20 years, well more than 20 years, some of them applying since the season reopened, and they finally got a cow tag. Then I would say, okay, is there anybody here who this is your first year applying for a tag? And inevitably, a few people would raise their hands. I'm like, I just wanted to scream. I'm like, okay, this is the first year you applied for a Michigan elk tag and you got one. And then I would say, okay, let me take a chance here. Of those who raised their hands that you applied for the first time and got an elk tag, did anybody get a bull tag? Yep, somebody would raise their hand. Every year, it seems like, somebody would raise their hand that this was their first year applying for a Michigan elk tag and they got a bull tag. I'm like, how does this system work? I know it's a fair system. All right, I get it. It is fair. It's a different system than the bear points, okay? Because bear points is strictly on points. Every year you apply, you get another point, and eventually when you get enough points, you'll get a bear tag. The elk system is, I think they call it a weighted or a modified system, whatever the key word is there. It doesn't necessarily work that way. In that, obviously, you can get an elk tag the first year that you apply, where somebody else who's been applying for 30 years didn't get one. I'm not sure why they do it that way. I'm sure there's a good reason. I just don't fully understand it. But if you did get an elk tag, excellent. Congrats to you. God bless you. I hope you get your animal. Same with a bear tag. I will recommend, though, that for either group, if you think you might need a guide, you probably need a guide, and don't drag your feet, because a lot of the guides that I know are already filled up for both bear seasons and elk seasons. Now, you might say, look, I'm a hunter. I'm a deer hunter. I get it. I know how to do such things, and I'm not diminishing that or discounting that, or I'm not arguing with you at all. But getting a Michigan elk tag is a whole different experience, especially, say, in that first season when it's warmer. There's a lot of foliage, and I think it's a private land hunt. So you can't just walk out into the Pigeon River and find yourself an elk and shoot it. You're going to need some help. And these elk guides, the good ones, are on the herds. They watch them. They follow them every day. They know where they are, and it's going to increase your odds exponentially. Plus, when you put an elk down, don't you want as many people around you as you can to help out? I mean, they're a big critter. It's not like you drag onto the rack of a bull elk, a 600-pound bull elk, and you drag him out to the truck. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Bear hunting, I recommend a guide as well, especially if you live downstate and you're bait hunting. Because when that baiting season opens up, you're going to want to get a couple of baits started, and then you're going to want to refresh those baits on a regular basis until your season starts. And it's just a lot easier to find a local person, especially a guide, a respectable, legitimate guide, to do that for you. Your odds, again, for me, for example, last year, I had the third season hunting in the Newberry district, and I decided to hunt with Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer. I wanted to hunt with Johnny because, number one, he's a good guy. He's a fun guy. He's a lot of fun to be around. Plus, he's been bear hunting. He's been guiding for 35-ish years. Now, had I just decided to go on my own, number one, to find some place to hunt, to establish a bait, to run up there from central Michigan to Newberry a couple of times a week for 6 weeks, that wasn't going to happen. So I strongly recommend you seek out a guide. And if you're looking for a hound hunt, which I have never done yet, but I have nothing against it, and I think it would be an interesting experience, look for those people as well. Okay, so I said the days are getting shorter. Thank you for that. The weather kind of changed too, didn't it? Now, as I look at the forecast for the weekend, it looks kind of hot and muggy again. But wasn't it nice midweek to get that little change, that little breath, that little breather, that little, it's not so muggy. What I didn't like about it, and as I'm sitting here in the studio right now recording this week's show, I don't know if it happened or not. Last week, we were not able to do our Wednesday night live on Saginaw Bay with Mr. Angler Quest Brad Dupuie, fishing walleye out of the Linwood Beach Marina because of the northeast winds. Today, as I'm in the studio right now, we have a light northeast breeze. Now, the forecast calls for that light northeast breeze to pick up. And on Saginaw Bay, you don't want a northeast wind. So whether or not we made it out this past week, I don't know. If we didn't make it this week, we'll try it again next week. The only good thing, in my opinion, about a northeast or a consistent northeast or a persistent northeast or a doggone northeast wind on Saginaw Bay is that it keeps the cooler water in the inner bay, which keeps the walleye in the bay longer. That's the only good thing I can think about it. The second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp is less than a month away. I'd love to have you join us, both to play and to sponsor the event. Go to mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. The plans for the Mike Avery Signature Rapid River Knife have changed a little bit. We're still going to do it. We've changed focus a little bit. I'll tell you why later in the show when I get more time. But that's coming, and it's coming soon. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada, will join me. For those of you who did not get a Michigan bear tag and you want to hunt bears, Ron might be an option. Then Michigan elk guide Vance Gawel joins me in our second hour. Captain John Littlefield with how to become a licensed charter captain. If John can get me a license, my charter captain's license, he can get anybody a license. Then Brad Dupuie, Mr. Angler Quest, with an update on how that company is doing. This week's Ask Avery question. The question is hunter safety classes. Why are they so hard to find these days? And in hour number 3, bass fishing in Michigan with Gerry Gostenik, and we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Linwood Beach, of course, was the site of the Walleye for Warriors event a couple of weeks ago. It will be the site of the annual Angler Quest Owners Tourney coming up. Great facilities, great location, great people, and the fishing has been great. linwoodbeachmarina.com. All right, I was talking about just a minute ago before the break about Michigan bear and elk tags. You didn't get a Michigan elk tag. Okay, well, a few people did, but most of us didn't. Now, bear tags are a different story. There were 6,300 bear tags, I think, that were awarded. But still, that leaves like 55,000 people who applied and didn't get a bear tag. Now, myself, I did not apply for a tag. I applied for a point only because I knew that I would be going to Ontario this year, back to Ontario, to White River, Ontario, Canada, to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. A little background here. I have been going to Ontario, 20 years, at least, all of 15 years, maybe longer. I first started hunting up there with a guy named Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. He sold his operation to Ron St. Louis. Ron was one of his guides, and Ron has built this operation into one of the biggest bear hunting outfitters in Canada. He's a great guy. He's a hard-working guy, and I thought, you know what? Maybe he's still got some openings that if you didn't get your Michigan bear tag, you can go to Ontario. And Ron's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ron, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. What's White River looking like right now? How's the weather?
The weather has been lots of wind. We had some rain. It's been dry for part of the spring, but we didn't quite have our summer yet, but it's coming, I guess.
It's coming. Now, you just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago your spring bear hunt. Isn't it nice that Ontario has a spring hunt again? But man, Ron, you took some monsters during that season.
Yeah, we did good. Like everybody that hunted with us, saw bears. a few guys just, nothing they wanted to shoot or anything like that, but we did take some good bears, and had good bears on camera and stuff like that. So it was a good season.
And what's up with the colored bears? I haven't seen a lot of those from you for, and then in the last couple of years we're seeing more of them.
Yeah, like more in the spring. The fall we get the odd one, but in the spring for some reason we just tend to have one or two every year. And we did. One of our hunters, Josh, shot a nice one, 320, nice color phase. So beautiful bear. But we do see them when we're out baiting in the spring, and we do see them in the fall. It's just whether they move on, and then guys just don't have an opportunity yet seeing them. But yeah, it's been every year. We've been lucky. We've been getting one or two every year. So.
And to see a good size color bear like that one over 300 is kind of odd because, most people, if you see a color bear, a smaller one, you're not going to wait till it gets to 300 pounds. You're going to take it 200, 2.5.
Yeah. That's usually what happens. Like, because it's rare. Like, not too many guys that see them. So, it's not uncommon for 150 pounder to walk in and get harvested. But it's a beautiful bear, and it's a bear of a lifetime. So.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago, and I don't want to let this go by without following up on it. You said all of your hunters saw a bear, had the opportunity to shoot a bear. That is not unusual for you, even with the number of hunters you bring through there, that everybody at least sees bear. That's not a lot of people can claim that, Ron.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. Like, it's if you put the time in the stand and you don't jump around. If you spend 3 days, I always tell the guys you got to stay there for 3 days, because the way we bait every other day, so we don't know if they're getting hit the first day, the second day, or the third day. You know what I mean? So stay on that bait for 3 days, and if we have to move you, or if there's a sow and cubs, or there's, you want to move, usually we'll move you on the 3rd, 4th. Well, usually when we do make the moves, like we did this year, the guys harvested their bear right away. So.
Well, and inevitably, too, I mean, if you start jumping baits and you got a camera on both baits, the minute you leave, the next night a nice bear is going to come in.
Yeah, that's it. And it happened. It happened this spring. It happened to quite a few guys jumping back and forth. And they said, you know what? They checked their cameras. Man, I should have sat there last night, which would have been their 3rd night. Oh, we're going to jump. I haven't seen anything I like, or just sow and cubs. But in the springtime, I tell them, if you have a sow and cubs or sows around, stay at that bait if you got big bears there, because they're going to come back. They're looking for those sows. So they might leave for 2 or 3 days, but they're going to come back. If you have a monster on camera, stick at that bait, because he's coming back. I know it's hard for them to do, but I had some fellas, stick it out, and then they left for days, and they said, you know what, the last day of the hunt, I'm going to go back there, and sure enough, the big guy come in. So it's just patience. That's the thing. Like we had guys this spring. Like, one guy saw 22 bears.
Jeez.
And he hunted that bait and never harvested a bear. Passed up on 200 pounders. Like, that's a good spring bear. Like, but just they're seeing lots of bears, and they were just waiting for that big one. They knew there were some big ones in the area. So, but that's hunting. So.
How is your spring hunt different than the fall? And by fall, I mean mid-August. We call it a fall hunt, but it's late summer. How are those two hunts different?
Springtime, it's more of the bears, I think, that usually hibernate in that area. So it's, but it's different. You don't have the same food source. There's no blueberries to contend with or anything like that. The bears coming in, they don't have the weight. You judging them in the spring is totally different than the fall. You got, that bear that you look at coming in the bait and say, oh man, it's a nice bear. It's 200 plus. Then you get it on the scale, it might be 175 or 165, but it's still a great bear. It's just as a spring bear. Doesn't have the muscle mass, doesn't have the fat, but they're beautiful bears. So it just put the food out, and just the patience, sit there, and just a lot more sows. You do see a lot more sows and cubs in the springtime, I find, just because she's coming in to eat, so she can make sure she feeds her cubs and stuff like that. But other than that, the only difference is the fall time. You got to work a lot harder, get on them early, and then before the blueberries come in.
Yeah, I've seen this firsthand. You get a season with, in fact, I've seen this perfect scenario: a full moon and a lot of blueberries, and things can change.
Oh, it does. It changes overnight. I mean, like you say, you've seen it before. As much bait as we put out, and we put out a lot. I usually start a month and a half before the season, just so I know those bears are on them baits. Even if the blueberries do come in, it's just patience, because they're going to come back. Whether they come in and they hit the bait or they just do a drive-by, look at it, they're always curious. They're always going to come back, because that's where they were eating in the first place before the blueberries come in. But once those berries come in, and it's different, like totally different.
Let's talk about bait for a minute, Ron. Some people who have not done it might say, and they've said it to me, baiting is cheating. It's the lazy man's way to hunt bear. I don't agree, but I know here in Michigan, and I think up where you are too, if you tried to hunt by still hunting or doing something else, it wouldn't work out, would it?
It would be tough. I mean, you would have to, the only way you do it is maybe in the fall season if you hunted early or try to catch one in a blueberry patch, but just to drive down the road and you might see a bear, but he's gone before you even get out of a truck or anything like that. Like it's not as easy as what they think. You put bait out, they just walk right in. Trust me, those animals are smart. They know what's going on. They're looking before they walk into the bait. If there's something they don't like or something they don't hear, they're gone and they don't come back. They'll go nocturnal.
What do you use for bait? That's always a big question.
We usually use trail mix, cookies. I order all my bait comes out of United States. I use, ice and sugars, fondants, trying to mix it up a little bit. Like, this year we put a lot of cookies out and they seem to love that. So, I just mix it up. I don't use the same bait all the time. I try to mix it up. So that way if there's something in there they don't like or they're not eating as much, well, at least whatever else you have in there, if they're liking it, then they're going to eat it. So they're going to come back.
I've seen you use meat in the past, too. That's got to be very expensive, and that's got to be kind of a last-ditch Hail Mary type thing, isn't it?
It does. I think maybe in the spring you get away, but I think in the fall time with the heat, like we've tried it. I know in the past, like Pete's, used meat. I know a lot of outfitters and that. I just tend to go with more sweets because in the fall they're trying to put the calories on. So I go with more sweets and just put more bait out instead of putting a piece of meat and half a pail of bait or whatever. Mm-hmm. We just fill the pails right up and put lots of sweets in there and then just try to keep them coming. The more bait, the better. So.
How many baits are you running these days, Ron, in the fall?
In the fall, I'll be running about 120, 130 baits this year. And then the spring, I was running 80.
Oh, so your spring hunt is really picked up. It's helping to take that load off that fall hunt then.
Yeah, it does. Like I still, the numbers are there. It's just, I just kind of trying to, because I do have, the regulars that come in the spring, they love the spring hunt. And then I have the ones in the fall, you know what I mean? Like yourself, you come in the fall. Some guys prefer to come in the spring. It just works better for their schedule. So it works out good. So it's I do like, a lot of repeat come back every year. See you next year run. And some guys, do an elk hunt or they'll go, they'll let me know, we're not going to be back next year. We got a hunt planned. And then it frees up a few spots, you know what I mean? So I know, okay, well, I can take on an extra like 5 guys or 10 guys that year. But, the majority of the time, most guys love it so much coming up here and they see a lot of bears. So they just, they pretty much book right away for the following season. So
I've seen that, Ron. Hang tight. We're talking with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada. If you're looking for a Canada bear hunt, I highly recommend Ron. I've been up there many, many times. I've had a lot of great experiences. Never had a bad experience. I have not shot a bear every time, but only because it was my choice. You always see bears. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, more with Ron. Also, does he have any openings? If you really wanted to bear hunt this year and didn't get a Michigan tag, can you go to Ontario? We'll find out after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. And north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Seaboing Harbor Marina, where you can find a boat launch, slips, fish cleaning station, a bait shop. If you fish the east side of Saginaw Bay, you need to check out the Seaboing Harbor Marina. You can find them online at seaboingharbor.com and on Facebook. Beautiful facilities, a great location. Again, if you're on the east side of Saginaw Bay, check it out, seaboingharbormarina.com. We're talking right now with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Ron, you run a lot of hunters through there. You're very, very successful. I know a lot of your hunters come from Michigan, and it seems to me most of your hunters are actually bow hunters, aren't they?
Yeah, probably 95% are bow hunters. Like a lot of guys are switching to crossbows. The odd, a few gun hunters, but not too many. So.
I think bear hunting over bait is the perfect scenario for archery, whether it's a crossbow, a compound, or recurve. A few years ago, I had one of the best hunts of my life, taking a very nice bear with a recurve at one of your baits. So I think it's perfect for archery.
Yeah, we had a few guys every year. There's always a guy that comes up, with wants to try with a recurve and is successful, and that just put them on a nice easy shot, 15 yards or something, and it works out. And, so it's either or. It's easier to come across the border with archery equipment than it is rifle, and especially with our new regulations and laws now. It's just more questions at the border and stuff like that. Like we've seen it more this year than in the past. So.
Oh, really? God forbid, do not try to bring a handgun. Don't forget there's a handgun in your truck and try to cross the border, because it's gonna cause nothing but problems. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't bother. It's and check our regulations. What type of firearms you can bring, because I know there's a lot of that are banned here in Canada now. So within Canada, so it's just barrel length and stuff like that. Make sure shotguns. Make sure you have a plug in it. Just all those things like that. It doesn't hurt to go on it and pre-register your firearm. Look into the rules, and then it's just easier when you get at the border.
Yeah, I don't like your gun laws in Canada, Ron, but I love everything else about White River, the area, the people, the facilities. You got a lot of bears. I mean, I keep coming back year after year because you guys are so accommodating. And I can tell for you, I mean, obviously it's a business, but it's more than that. Your hunters become your friends.
Yeah, it's just great. Every year we wait. It's more of a family now than it is. I love doing it. You know what I mean? Like, and I always tell my boys, I said, you know what? When the passion is not there anymore, when I don't like, I'm not enjoying it. Mm-hmm. I enjoy doing it. It's not just for the money. I enjoy having everybody come back every year. It's just, that's my vacation. I take all my vacation. I get 6 weeks a year, and I book all my vacation for the bear hunt, so I can run my bear hunt, because I just love doing it. So each
hunter gets 2 baits. Those baits are active, because if they're not, you will put them on a different bait. Like we talked earlier.
Yeah.
Boy, I love hunting from the ground blind. I'm bringing up one ground blind, Ron. I know you're going to give me 2 baits, but I'm going to stick on the one. I'm not going to move, because as soon as I move, it's going to be a mistake. So I'm going to stay on that one bait. Here's the question for you, though. Do you have any openings during this fall season?
It's right now. I got to go through and just fine tune and check with the guys. I got to call everybody back, see who's coming back, because how it is. You book your hunt in January, and then I check back with them just to confirm that they are coming in case something come up or something like that. But I do have a few guys that are waiting to just for me to find out. But within the next couple of days there, I'm going to sit down and then make some phone calls and just see who's coming back, see if there's any availabilities, and then I can let you know.
Well, that sounds good. I guess what I'd like to do is if somebody is interested in hunting with you, they can send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and I can put them in touch with you if that works for you, Ron. You think that's a good way to do it?
Yeah, that's fine. That
okay.
works out perfect.
Okay.
If they if they call me on my cell, they leave a message, I'll get back to them right away. Sometimes I'm busy, or if I'm out baiting or whatever, which we'll be starting, in the next week or two. We'll be out, checking stands and throw some bait out. So yeah, just leave me a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
I understand there's some changes there. You've built a cabin since I was up there last.
Yeah, we upgraded quite a bit. I built a cabin. I added on to the gazebo. It's fully closed in, screened in now. I have a shower facility now, so guys that are staying right there, they got got hot water on demand. I got a shower system now. Every year we try to upgrade. The guys are happy when they come in. They say, every time we come back, there's always something new. We see your putting into the business and everything like that, and they enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, I added onto my gazebo, so everybody sits down there in the evening. Springtime hockey was still on, so I got internet service now, Starlink. We had a TV, 55-inch TV. The guys are watching Stanley Cup playoffs. And when the weather wasn't great and we were skinning bears, we just moved everything inside the skinning shack. So we had the TV in there, and they were watching. We were skinning bears and watching the hockey games. So.
Beautiful, Ron. Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, a first-class operation. I look forward to hunting with Ron again. I'll be up there in the middle of August. If you want to hunt with Ron, send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, or do a Google search for Ron St. Louis and Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Elk guide Vance Gawel after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? It takes less than a minute. If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, Versa Skins can help you out there. If you are a saddle hunter, Versa Skins makes jackets specifically for saddle hunters. Check them out online at versaskins.com or go to amazon.com and do a search for Versa Skins brand. Versa Skins, just change your skin for the season you're in. Right now, the season we're in is summertime fishing season for the most part, but we're starting to look at the fall hunting season, right? We just found out who got Michigan bear tags, and we found out who got Michigan elk tags. Now, nobody gets a Michigan elk tag. Nobody does. But, of course, 260 people did. And I strongly recommend, if you did get an elk tag, to find an elk guide. Just because you're a great deer hunter doesn't mean you can head north and successfully hunt elk. You need a good guide. Vance Gawel, in my opinion, is one of the best out there, and is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Vance, welcome. How have you been, buddy?
I'm doing good, Mike.
I bet your phone's been ringing.
It was a busy day yesterday, late last night. Busy couple days. Yeah, a couple days.
Because you are an elk guide, focused centered around that Pigeon River State Forest area, because that's where the elk are.
Yep. I get up in Pigeon River, but I'm primarily south, where they range down into the farmland and stuff. But we do venture up there quite a bit in December.
260 hunters, 3 seasons this fall, and I hear that early one, that September hunt can be absolutely brutal, right? Temperatures can be warm. You got foliage on the trees. I think maybe that's a private land hunt, so you really need some help in a situation like that, don't you, Vance?
Yeah, knowing people that have access to private is really going to benefit you for the yearly hunt, particularly. Because you're just limited to the X range, which is outside of the center of the heart of the elk herd in the pigeon. So early hunt is just primarily trying to keep those animals that have gotten out of the middle from going too much farther.
Success rate, if you draw a Michigan elk tag, is that pretty much a guarantee you're going to get an animal?
Not in the early season. I feel like the last few years, it's been 65% success as a whole, as everybody who drew a tag. Early season can be really tough with the temperatures. Cows are probably really, really hard to hunt. Just is a tougher hunt in general in December. And, there's no snow, so no tracking.
What about your success? What about your success during that early season? I got to believe you're higher than that 60%.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time we sent somebody home without an animal, but I'm lucky that I have so much private land available to me for me to hunt the farms and all that good stuff. So got a good area with a lot of animals that a lot of farmers don't want there.
Yeah, luck might play a little bit of a role in advance, but it's your experience, it's your expertise, and your willingness to work hard for your hunters. I think that's a bigger factor.
Yeah, we work hard and spend a lot of time. I don't really deer hunt anymore. I just spend all year looking, watching, and following the elk around. So that's part of it.
You actually you used to be a pretty hardcore bear guide. You don't even guide bear hunters anymore either, do you?
I'm doing one bait this year because I have a pure Michigan winner, and he's never done bait. And so I did one bait, a few baits last year for a friend, and I said, yeah, I'll do it again this year. So, but as far as dogs, I used to be 100% run with dogs, and I haven't had those for a few years now.
When I win the Pure Michigan hunt, and it's going to be within the next couple of years, you are my first call, Vance.
All right, I'll save a spot.
All right, so how does somebody get in touch with a Michigan elk guide? In particular, you. Like, if I do a search online, I find you, but I don't find any contact information. Like, for you, Vance, how do people get in touch with you?
Best way is go to the DNR guide list page, and it'll have all the guides and numbers for them. But a lot of people I get calling are just from people that I've had as hunters before. They word of mouth, but everybody's listed on the DNR website.
Excellent. That's great advice. I appreciate that, Vance. And I don't know if you have openings, but I would strongly encourage people, if they got an elk tag and they're looking for a guide, to get in touch with you, Vance Gawel. I'm hoping you can get somebody out, because I know your hunters always have a great time. I know you're in the middle of meetings. I'm going to let you go, but have a great season, Vance, and we'll be talking again soon.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Vance Gawel, one of the most well-respected elk hunting guides in Michigan. We have a bunch of great guides, and it's important, as I said earlier, whether you are bear hunting or elk hunting, if you can work with a good guide, a good top-quality, respected, well-known, preferably, hardworking guide, your odds of success, if you define success as taking an animal, your odds of success go up. And I got to believe, if you've been waiting 20 years to get a Michigan elk tag, one of the ways you're going to judge success is if you do indeed take an animal. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, John Littlefield on how to become a licensed charter captain, Brad Dupuie, Mr. Angler Quest, and this week's Ask Avery question: why is it so hard to find a hunter safety class?
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And as I say every week, I truly believe the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM radio station. But if you can't, if your local station, your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if, God forbid, you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, meaning you can't hear it on your local radio station, it's nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show as a backup. And I look at it as a backup only. In a world where podcasting has become so ubiquitous, where everybody has a podcast, and people, even if they hear the radio version of the show, they say, hey, I heard your podcast. But don't get me sidetracked on that one. The podcast is the same content as the broadcast version of the radio show, but it's available somewhere else, somewhere other than on your local AM or FM station. Where, you might ask? And I would say, well, thank you for asking. You can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, and even on YouTube. I do like podcasting, though. I make jokes about it, but I do think podcasting is a great way to reach people. And every month I do podcasts for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, and Killer Food Plots. So I try to be as relevant as I can. I try to reach as many people as I can on using as many different platforms, including social media. Now, I am not. I played around with putting some things on TikTok. It's not me dancing in front of a camera, so you don't have to worry about that. But outdoor-related content, primarily Facebook. I know Facebook is an old person's social media, but that's where my biggest audience is, and that's where I do the most of my work. I'm also on Instagram. I am on YouTube. I am on LinkedIn. So I try to stay out there, and I appreciate you following me. I would not be able to do this for so many years if you didn't listen to the radio show, listen to the podcast, and follow me on social media. So I do certainly appreciate that. Want to turn our attention at the top of the second hour of the show to something that I think is on the bucket list for a lot of people here in Michigan. That is becoming a licensed captain, a boat captain, a charter captain. But it's not just for fishing charters. I think that's primarily what people look at it for. But it's also, running a tugboat, running a towboat, running a sightseeing tour, running a sailing excursion. If you are going to take people on the water for hire, you need to be a licensed captain. Now, that process is not easy, it is not simple, and it shouldn't be. If people are going to hire you to take them on the water, they trust that you have a certain level of expertise and experience and training. That's where John Littlefield comes in, Captain John Littlefield. John taught my charter captain's class, 6 years ago or so. And I always say, if he can get me through the class, if he can get me to become a licensed charter captain, he can get just about anybody to become a licensed captain. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Captain, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. What have you been up to, John? I mean, have you been fishing? Anything fun?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of working, but a lot of playing, too. I just got back from the UP last week, doing a little bit of fishing, and just, enjoying the spring and now summertime here in Michigan.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the fun side of things first. You are a hardcore angler. You are a multi-species angler. You don't, if it swims, you want to catch it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd mentioned I went up to the UP. I was in the Marquette area last week. We did some, stream trout fishing for brookies. We did some big lake fishing. We went out on Superior one day and caught some salmon, some splake, some lakers, and then some inland walleyes. So we covered a lot of stuff in 1 week up there.
And I know the week before that, you were out on Saginaw Bay walleye fishing with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuie, on one of his 2025 Angler Quests. What was that trip like, and how was that boat?
Yeah. Well, that was actually my first time on one of the new Angler Quests, so it was good to see all the changes that have been made. The boat I run is a 2019, and I've got really nothing I'd like to critique about it. I think it's great, but it was cool to see some of the changes he's made to the new generation Angler Quest, and I think it's going to be a big hit. And
you guys caught some fish that day. Saginaw Bay's on fire this summer. When you can get out?
Yeah, well, that was my only experience on Saginaw Bay for the summer. I might be back next month, but I mean, we caught them. There's a ton of fish out there.
How did you get interested in this? I mean, how does a young Michigan guy who loves to fish end up where you are today, John?
Well, that's a good question. It just kind of happened, is what. So I wanted to get my captain's license when I was in my early 20s, and I got my captain's license. And then during that week of being in class, the man who was my instructor asked me about teaching the class, and it wasn't really an opportunity that I had considered, but the more we talked about it and what it entailed, it just seemed like a good, if nothing else, just a good opportunity to explore. So I did, and I taught for him for about 5, maybe 6 years. And here about a year and a half ago, I ended up starting up my own school, and I've got a good team of instructors, and now we're going here. So it's been a long time to become this, but I guess it just kind of happened through putting yourself out there and exploring the opportunities that came about.
Well, I think the reason Captain Mel Stackpool asked you to help teach a class was he saw something in you, the same thing I saw in you when I was taking my class from you, and that is you're very calm, you have a very calm personality, and you have the ability to take what I consider to be somewhat complex concepts and situations and turn them into something a little bit easier to understand. I think that's a blessing. I think that's a gift that you have, John.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the instructors that I have all share some of these traits. I mean, it's like you said, it's a ton of information, and it has to be presented in a way that makes it not intimidating. It has to be presented in a way that allows you to learn it and for it to stick so that you can pass those tests, because you only have, a long week to learn the material. So it's important to be able to communicate it in a way that helps it to stick and allows you to pass the test at the end of the week.
We should note that you don't have to take a class like this. You can try to take the test. Well, you can take the test directly on your own from the Coast Guard. And some people, I'm sure, do pass that process. But I wouldn't want to do it, John. I think it would be overwhelming.
Yeah, that's a path that probably a lot of people don't know, is that here in Michigan, the closest test center would be Toledo. So you can just go right down there to the Coast Guard Exam Center and take your test. And if you pass, you can get your license. Except for, without having the training or the knowledge of what to expect on the test, it's not impossible, but it's going to be tough for you to pass it. So we've had students that have talked to the Coast Guard directly about getting their license, and even the Coast Guard will send them to a course like what we're offering to give them the best chance of success.
And I certainly appreciate that. How long is the class, John? Your class?
The class is, the one we do, it's 9 days. It has to be 54 hours of instruction plus the exams. So we do that over the course of 9 days. Every day is a full 9 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. And then on that 9th day, we give the exams. And there's 4 tests that you have to pass. And you pass all 4 tests, we give you a certificate, and then you send that into the Coast Guard along with all the other stuff. And then the Coast Guard issues you your license.
The fact that you are authorized to give that test, I think, is a big deal. It makes it a lot easier for the folks taking your class to be like kind of a one-stop shop type thing.
Yep, it makes it easy. I mean, I guess there's nothing easy about the process.
Yeah, thank you, because I was going to jump in there. I found it, I wasn't 30 years old when I took the class, right? So my brain had not been used to being in that environment for a lot of years, a classroom environment, learning, trying to retain information, to spit that information back out. I found it to be challenging, but also, John, when I finished and passed and got my license, I found it extraordinarily rewarding.
Yep, and part of that has to do with the fact that it's not an easy, free ride. You got to work for it. You got to put in the work. But then once you pass, you're going to feel very accomplished in doing so. And then all the other requirements, like there's Coast Guard physical, drug test, background check, and a whole list of stuff but we break it down for you and give you the resources you need to get those things done too. And every single day I'm talking with past students, going through their paperwork, making sure they have everything they need to make sure it's right before they send to the Coast Guard. So, even though the process can be daunting, we definitely do our best to make it easy for you.
Hang tight, John. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Captain John Littlefield of Premier Maritime Training. The website, pmtcaptains.com. That's pmtcaptains.com. If getting your captain's license is on your bucket list, if it's something you're thinking about for retirement, if it's something you've always dreamed of, I cannot recommend Captain John Littlefield highly enough. pmtcaptains.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us north of the bridge. Oh, let's go to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. Speaking of north of the bridge, this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by, okay, you know what that is, right? Do I have to? Okay, one more time. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open. I just took it out of my pocket. I carry a Rapid River knife with me all the time. I am a big fan of this Michigan-based family-owned company. Their products are guaranteed for life. They are handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Check out their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. Their soon-to-be expanding showroom. Go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. Use the promo code Avery15. That's 15, Avery15, to get 15% off anything in the showroom, anything online, or anything in person. Also, we continue to work on the new Mike Avery signature model of Rapid River knife. I threw company owner Chris Durson a little bit of a curveball in that I was asking for something that realistically, the more we looked at it, wasn't possible to be done in the numbers that I think this knife is going to demand. So we have changed the prototype design just a little bit, but I think it looks beautiful. I think you're going to like it as well. So the process has been delayed about a week. Again, that's because of me, not because of Chris. So stand by. This new knife is going to be beautiful. Proceeds will go to the group called Outdoor Driven to help first responders and veterans work through some of the crap they've had to deal with in their life, working to protect us by getting them in outdoor situations. So the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. While you are online, by the way, my website, mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and then jump over to this website, pmtcaptains.com. That is the website of Premier Maritime Training. John Littlefield, Captain John Littlefield, is the guy who owns that company. He is the guy who got my captain's license. And then recently here this spring, I had to renew my license. John, you talked about people who have gone through the class staying in touch with you. I was back and forth with you a bunch during that process, but I was relieved that the renewal process is actually much easier than the original getting your license in the first place.
Yep, the renewal process, there's still quite a bit to it, but, the whole class and the exams and all that stuff, you can get by without some of that stuff if you have enough time on the water, which you did. So it made it a pretty seamless process. And I talk to students all the time who, had the class with us 5 years ago, so now they're renewing their license. And I've got a little checklist I made up, and I help you through that whole process even in 5 years after you took our course. So
you're
in good hands.
We are in good hands. Thank you. That's a great way of putting it. We are in good hands with you, Captain John Littlefield. You make it as easy as possible, because the Coast Guard, and I get it, they like things the way they like them, including how you submit documents in email form. They don't want them all in the same folder. They want them as individual documents, and you don't know that till you go through the process or talk with a guy like you who helps walk us through it. So thank you, John. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Who takes your class? Who are your clients, your customers?
Well, I think that when people think about getting a captain's license, everybody thinks that it's only fishermen who want to do fishing charters. And even though that is a good number of people, that's far from the majority of our students. We have people from, fishing charters, but also like towboats. Anytime you see Towboat US out there or Sea Tow, every single one of those guys has a captain's license. Or any type of dive tours or sightseeing or sailing tours, day charters. Anybody that's taking money for driving a boat needs this license. And another big one would be boat deliveries. People need a boat moved from, here to there.
Mm-hmm.
They need somebody with a captain's license. So there's just a million different reasons why people want a license. And honestly, a huge number of people are doing it just as a bucket list item. They've lived their life on the water. They love boats, and it's just another notch in their cap, something they've always wanted to do. And they never plan to use the license. They just want to get it. So we see a lot of people like that too.
Yeah, I never plan to run paid charters. Number one, I don't consider myself a good enough fisherman. Number two, I don't want to go into competition with my friends who are paid licensed charter captains who take people out on a daily basis, but I use them for resources. I mean, I check in with those guys. I say, help me out. I got it because I found out, even though I'm offering charity trips that I give primarily to church and civic groups, community groups, even though I'm not making any money on it, technically I have to have a license to take those people out. So that's why I did it. So there is a myriad of reasons. I can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about a boat delivery. I actually reached out to you. My brother-in-law is looking to get a boat delivered. And right away, boom, you said, okay, I know this person. They went through the class, and they'd be a perfect option for you. So you are, once again, John Littlefield, a wealth of information.
Yeah, we try. I mean, I've had countless students through class, so I know somebody that does whatever it is that you're after.
Yeah.
And, So,
all right, so let's talk about the class itself. You said it's a 9-day class. What are the different topics that are included in the process?
Well, the 4 main things that you're going to be tested on. The first one, it's called Rules of the Road, which is the Coast Guard Navigation Rules Handbook, which covers everything from right-of-way stuff to different lights to sound signals. That type stuff is only one subject that's taught. It is probably the number one most important that we focus the most time on. But also there's chart plotting, so those big paper nautical charts that you thought you'd never have to use. We learn how to use them. We learn how to plot courses, calculate ETAs, figure out the current, all that fun stuff on the charts. And those 2 subjects, the rules and the charts, are the 2 biggest things that we focus our time on in class. But then we also have something called Deck General and Deck Safety, which covers any safety-related topics, propellers, anchoring, that type thing. And then the last one is called Navigation General, which covers weather topics. We even get into the tides a little bit. And then the buoy system is a big part of that as well.
When you teach your classes down in Florida in saltwater, I bet the tides are a bigger topic than they are up here.
Well, it's something the guys up down there are more familiar with for sure. But the class we teach is a Coast Guard issued license. So this license could be used anywhere in the United States. So the material in the class that we teach is exactly the same whether I'm teaching in Michigan or Florida. It's all the same stuff.
And then what license does somebody get? Is it the 6-pack or is it the 25-ton or what is it?
Well, it's good. That's a loaded question. So I'm going to start with the first step is the 6-pack, and that's the majority of what we do. And the 6-pack license allows you to operate vessels up to 100 tons, but it limits you to 6 or fewer passengers. So that covers most people that are just doing, smaller charters and things like that. But then if you were to operate a vessel carrying more than 6 passengers, we also offer an upgrade course that allows you to upgrade your 6-pack to the master. And so it's a 2-step process if you want the master. The first step is always the 6-pack course, and then the second step would be to take the upgrade course after that.
You talked about the different classes. I remember, and this one it freaks me out to this day, you would put a black piece of paper in front of us with a series of colored dots. You say, okay, what are we looking at? What is this boat we're looking at? What direction are we looking at it from, and what does it mean? And I'm thinking, you are blowing me away, John Littlefield, But I understand, right? There's a reason that type of information is included in the class.
Yep, everything changes at night when you can't see anything except for lights. And, most people probably don't spend enough time on the water at night to realize just how important it is. But the way the Coast Guard rules are written, you can determine what you're looking at, what type of boat it is, what direction it is, who's got the right of way, all of that stuff just based on what combination of lights you can see. So it is something that requires a little bit of thought, but to me, I think that's one of the more fun parts of the rules part, is figuring out that type of stuff. Use the rules and apply it to a practical situation, how you see it on the water.
You have an interesting definition of fun.
Well, we find fun where we can. It's the little things.
I also loved, the navigation. Okay, you're here, you got a current here, the wind's blowing here, how far are you going to drift in 45 minutes or whatever? That is the point where I thought, okay, I'm not going to make it through this class.
Yeah, so the charting is one that we often, people like to complain about that one the most because they see it as something that, why do we have to learn this? I'm never going to use this. But the Coast Guard sees the six-pack class as the foundation of every other license because, most people that take our course might never, get a bigger license than the six-pack, but a lot of people are going to upgrade that to the 100-ton master. You can also upgrade that to the 200-ton master, 500-ton, 1,600-ton, unlimited tonnage, but the foundation for all of that is the six-pack class, which is the charting. So you're going to learn the most important stuff like the charts, the rules, and that type of stuff. So it is important, even though on your small boats, on my small boat, we might never get out the big charts and plot them, but all of these guys that are going to be driving bigger boats are going to be needing to know how to chart, how to figure out how to compensate for the current and the wind. So all those topics you're going to learn in our class, and they are important, whether you see it that way or not.
No, and listen, I joke about it and saying, I may have joked about it, but I hope I never appeared to be complaining about it because I get it. I get the fact that if you are going to be licensed by the U.S. Coast Guard to take people out for hire, that it has to be a rigorous process. It has to be very much regimented. It has to be very specific. And again, for me at my age to get that license, whether I ever actively use it or not, it was a huge accomplishment, and you, Captain John Littlefield, helped me get that. So for that, I am very grateful to you. And I would encourage people, if they're interested, go to your website, pmtcaptains.com. That's pmtcaptains.com. Check it out, and you can become a licensed captain as well, courtesy of you, Captain John Littlefield.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would encourage people, too, if they have any questions about what it's like to get your license, what it entails, and all that stuff, give us a call, shoot us an email. You can even message us through our Facebook page, and I'm glad to help you out and point you in the right direction.
John, always a pleasure. Good fishing to you, and I'm sure I will be in touch in the future. Captain John Littlefield of Premier Maritime Training, the website pmtcaptains.com. That's pmtcaptains.com. When we come back, another guy we referenced in this conversation, Mr. Angler Quest Brad Dupuie. His new boats have been out for a while now. How are they doing? We'll check in with that, with Brad about that, and then we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery question. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba, WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Company owner Rich Krizan has done a wonderful job with this company that's designed to help you enjoy your hunting experiences more fully. Food plots are a big thing these days. You're going to spend a lot of money on them, so why not work with somebody who has your best interest at heart? And I think that is Killer Food Plots. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Now, Rich I'm doing some time shifting here. As we are sitting in the studio right now, midweek, recording this show, we are supposed to go out on Saginaw Bay this evening to do a Wednesday Night Live with Mr. Angler Quest Brad Dupuie, Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods, and Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots. We don't know if we were able to go. By the time you're hearing the show, I don't know if we went or not, because these northeast winds are right on the edge of whether we can get out or not. If we do go, we're going with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuie, who's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Mr. Angler Quest, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, we're doing great, Mike. We're doing great. Looking forward to hopefully getting out fishing here this evening with you.
My fingers are crossed, but I'm also looking forward to, whether we make it out tonight or do it next week or whatever, I want to see that new 2025 8526 Pro Troll. And I'm curious, Brad, you and I talked throughout this whole process of you leaving your former company, starting your own company, the new Angler Quest QUEST. You've got boats out there on the water now. I mean, how's it going? What's the reaction?
It's going very well. The environment is tough out there. I can tell you, I've been engaged in working the version that I have, the latest and greatest 2025 model, for ever since Memorial Day, getting it on the water, testing it, fishing it like I have over the years. And man, I'll tell you, it's a very, very solid boat from a standpoint of how the company's doing and everything's going. I am chipping away, getting sales. I always need more. What's really cool is I'm getting a lot of inquiries throughout the nation. This past weekend, I got inquiries, 2 from New York, 2 from Georgia, California, South Dakota. Just really cool seeing those pipeline people that have been there and know about the product showing interest in the new stuff.
What are people going to notice if somebody is used to one of the older versions and they jump on your new boat? Is it going to become obvious? What are they going to see, or do you have to look inside? Do you have to look close?
I think it's pretty obvious. There's 2 big areas that you'll see a big difference. One is the rear fish station. The rear fish station is really slick this year. The doors are in the front. It's got a bunch of machining, Angler Quest logos, and the word Angler Quest in machined, CNC milled right into the material. It's a much more robust, different look than it's ever had. The front of the boat versus the old versions of Angler Quest had a big sweeping radius around the front, where this has a straight wall and then has basically a big 45-degree chamfer. And that front look of the boat gives it a little more of a utilitarian, tough look. It's a great difference because in those panels where I have the front wall and the angle on the corner, I'm actually putting a plate in back of that and injecting foam so that those segments are very strong and very dent resistant, which is something we've seen in the past on the big water. If your wall set is pretty close to the front, sometimes people will hit a wave incorrectly and put a dent in it. So that look of the front of the boat, the bow of the boat is quite a bit different as well.
What about the tubes, Brad? Because that's the heart of a pontoon, is the tubes.
It is truly the heart. The chassis is totally different than what I have done in the past. It's not necessarily something that is going to be super obvious to most people. The nose cone design is a little different. My tubes, for instance, on the boat I'm running, the 26-footer, I've got 7 fully welded baffles. I've got .125 material. I've got lateral nose cone support that's welded on the interior. Things that are significantly beefed up that you may not be able to see visually without, really looking at it and focusing and understanding what's there.
Well, for folks who want to see this in action, they can go to my Facebook page or the Angler Quest Pontoons Facebook page, and you'll either be looking at a video from last week as we were out, or looking forward to next week when we get out on Saginaw Bay. They can also go to your website, Angler Quest Pontoons, QUEST, anglerquestpontoons.com, to get a better look at what's out there. Brad, I know the fishing has been good. I'm looking forward to getting out there with you, and we will show people what this new boat is all about. And we'll be fishing out of the Linwood Beach Marina, a great place to be jumping off. I will wish you continued success, and you and I will certainly be in touch.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mike.
Brad Dupuie, Mr. Angler Quest, Quest. I've been following Brad. I've been following this company since the Angler Quest Pontoon concept came about. At first I thought there's no way. And I thought, well, it looks like a fishing pontoon. Well, maybe it is. And then I had a chance to fish it, to spend some time on it. And it's like, well, spend a lot of time on it. It's like, okay, now I'm sold on the concept, and I'm very excited about the new version, Quest, and where Mr. Angler Quest takes this whole process. When we come back, we'll wrap up the second hour of the show with this week's Ask Avery question. Why is it so hard to find a hunter safety class? Well, hopefully an answer coming up after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And again, a big thank you to the Security Credit Union Foundation for really stepping up and becoming a major sponsor of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. You can learn more about Security Credit Union online at securitycreditunion.org. securitycreditunion.org. Yeah, thank you. The Ask Avery question this week comes from a good friend of mine, Ross Elliott. And he did not send it to me in an email. That's the best way to do it if you don't have my phone number. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. But Ross just picked up the phone and called me. And he said, hey, my question is, where do I find hunter safety classes? Now, I get this every year about this time. People from all over the state, Avery, where can we find the nearest hunter safety class to us? Why does it seem sometimes like they're so hard to find? And are there fewer of them than there used to be? Well, I don't know the answer to this, but Corporal Ken Lowell does. He is a Michigan Conservation Officer, michigan.gov/DNR. Ken has been with us on the show before, and I appreciate that. Ken, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So hunter safety classes, are there fewer of them? Are there less of them than there used to be?
You know, it kind of goes yearly. Some years there's more than others. And, obviously we rely heavily on our volunteer instructors throughout the state. They do a great job, providing these classes. But some years they don't run as many classes, and that maybe because of availability to the club that they are in or run the classes to. I don't have a big list in front of me about classes per year, but I know that we've ran quite a few this year, 151 classes offered between January and May so far here in 2025. And we have some big opportunities coming up here, August, September timeframe, with more classes to come.
Is there a list or a clearinghouse somewhere online or on the DNR website or something that has all these classes listed, or how do we find them?
Yeah, if you go to the michigan.gov/DNR website there, you can. The homepage pops up. It's right on there, Department of Natural Resources. At the top, you can click on the thing that says Education and Safety, because that's what we're looking for. Once folks click on that, you just follow those links go to Education and Safety, and then you scroll down and there's a picture of a conservation officer in a class, and it talks about safety certification and hunter education. Once you click on that, it'll bring up another page which calls Recreational Safety and Hunter Education. Obviously, that's what we want. And then we can search for classes. Once you click Search for Classes, it will bring up a page with every type of hunter education bow education, combo education, trapper, boater, snowmobile, ORV, all those things will pop up. And if you click on the right-hand side, it talks about view upcoming events. So any class that's posted will pop up when they click on that.
What about online courses? I feel like there's been more emphasis on that lately. Is that an option?
Yeah, you can take an online course, and it is probably the most popular option anymore, and that, again, is on the website. You click on that. It is a roughly a 6-hour course online. You can take an hour at a time. It's not something you have to do all at once. But once they complete that online course, everyone has to take a field day, which is an in-person course that is anywhere from 4 to 5 hours at some point. So they would have to find that under the Hunter Education Field Day upcoming events for that.
So that's good. Even if they do it online, they still have to, at some point, to finish up the class, they've got to meet with folks in person to verify their knowledge and what they've learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. When they complete the online course, they should be able to print an online completion form or save it to their phone. They would bring that to the field day, show the instructor that they have completed that, and then they're able to take that 4 or 5 hour field day, which is more hands-on. They do take a 50-question test, and that's just review from all the stuff they worked on for the 6 hours online. But yeah, the online part is part of it. The field day is a big part as well, just so that we understand. They understand. Here, we're going to put a bow and arrow or a firearm in your hand, and how do you handle that? Like, make sure that we're going to be safe with that stuff.
Excellent. Yeah. And as we both know, there is legislation in Lansing right now that, if passed by the Senate, would allow hunter safety classes back in the schools. Wouldn't that be cool?
That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, we're really always been a big fan of trying to run hunter ed at school. In fact, I took it in 7th grade in school, and it was a really good class. Might have been my favorite middle school class.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Hey, Corporal Ken Lowell, always appreciate your input and your insight, and thanks for hopping on and helping me with this week's Ask Avery question.
No problem. Always glad to do it.
All right,
you.
Ken Lowell, Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. That's where you find out where the classes are offered. Remember, if you do an online class, you've still got to meet in person to wrap it all up. And again, speaking of wrapping it up, thank you, Security Credit Union, for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. We'll take a break. When we come back, bass fishing in Michigan in hour number 3.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. People sometimes say, Avery, how do you come up with enough content, enough topics, enough people, enough guests to cover to fill 3 hours each week? Well, the truth is, it is extraordinarily easy to fill 3 hours. We have so much going on in our great state of Michigan in the outdoors, depending on the season, that we could talk for more. And if I could get the stations to give me more than 3 hours, I would do it. We live in such a great state when it comes to outdoor recreational opportunities. Just think about the summertime right now. Just think about, for example, fishing. Man, we have world-class salmon and trout fishing on the big lakes. We have world-class inland trout fishing on the rivers. We have a sturgeon fishery. We have a muskie fishery. We have a walleye fishery second to none. great bluegill fishing, pretty good perch fishing. What else is out there? How about bass? Now, bass is something I admit I don't think about much myself because I'm not a bass fisherman. But I think about the times when I was a kid out on the farm ponds and stuff, pitching for bass, throwing for bass. And we got a pond behind the house right now. One of the neighborhood kids went out there the other day and caught the most beautiful largemouth bass. And I'm thinking, man, we have some great bass fishing in our state. Gerry Gostenik knows this firsthand probably better than anyone. His website, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. You can learn more about him there. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line as he is on the water with a client right now. Gerry, appreciate your time. How are you?
Not too bad. We're doing all right.
Where do we find you today, Gerry?
We are on Lake St. Clair today.
one of your favorite places to be.
Right.
Tell me about Lake St. Clair and where you are today as much as you can.
We're over in the Grosse Pointe area.
Targeting smallies or largemouth?
Smallmouth, yeah.
Is that
there's largemouth in the lake here, but for the most part, most of my clients are interested just in the smallmouth.
Where do your clients come from, Gerry? Are they Michigan people, or are we getting people from across the country coming into Michigan now?
Oh, I would say 60% of my customer base is from out of town.
Really?
Outside of the state of Michigan, yeah. The guys with me today are from Ohio.
And are these people who they're smallmouth aficionados, or they're just bass people in general who happen to be after smallies today?
No, I think that they make. Lake St. Clair's a nationwide destination for a lot of anglers, and it happens to be right in the backyard. The fisheries in.
Our cell is getting a little bit squirrely here, Gerry. Again, Gerry warned me about this. He said, look, I'm going to be on the water, so I will take whatever signal we can get. Why is Lake St. Clair such a great bass fishery?
Well, I think if you look at the way it's laid out, if you look at a map, it's basically a nursery in between Lake Huron and Lake Erie. It's only 20 feet deep out in the middle, so it's this basically a huge flat that has current flow through it, lots of nutrients in it, and it's an important nursery for a lot of species of fish, not just the smallmouth.
Yeah, it's a fish factory for everything out there. Why bass? Have you been a bass fisherman since you were a kid?
I have.
Did you in Michigan, was that out of the ordinary from your kids, from your friends when you were a kid?
Can you repeat that, Mike?
Well, I'm just thinking that when I think of bass fishing from my very narrow perspective, I think of the Bassmasters guys from down south. I don't know that many people here in Michigan who I grew up targeting bass. Were you kind of the lone guy out there on the edge?
I look back to my early days fishing with my grandparents up at our cabin in Lewiston, and we targeted panfish or anything that would bite, with a bobber and worm. But I think starting to watch the Bassmasters when I was young and getting a subscription to Bassmaster magazine, that sort of kind of started the itch for bass fishing. And we kind of went and tried to replicate what we saw on TV and read in the magazines up there at our cabin. And just kind of that's where I got the itch for just bass fishing.
And now these days, the things that you used to watch on TV and in the magazines, you've done yourself by being the subject of many articles and a lot of TV shows. So you've carved out a pretty darn good niche, haven't you?
Yeah. Hey, hard work and dedication to it, and things sometimes don't come as easy as you want or fast as you want, but in the end, it's worked out really well for me.
How many years have you been doing this, Gerry?
This is year 29.
So I guess it's going to work out for you.
A grouchy old charter captain.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just talking with Captain John Littlefield in the second hour about this process of becoming a charter captain. I have so much respect for you guys who do this day in and day out. And I have the sense, and I know you've got clients with you, so I'm going to be careful here, but I have the sense that your days on the water are not just about catching fish, but it's also about making the most of the experience with the people that you have on board with you.
Sure, and I mean, what's happened with me is you know, as long as I've been doing this, a lot of your customers are repeat clients, just like the guys that are with me today, and you build relationships with them just like any business, and it's you know, I look forward to our my trips every year with all my repeat customers, you know.
How do you handle a slow day on the water when the fishing isn't as good as you would like? Or do you just not even see that on Lake St. Clair?
It's rare. I mean, I would say a slow day for me would be like 25 fish for the whole day. Now, sometimes the weather can really throw a monkey wrench into it, and I think, you know, everybody understands if it's blowing 30 miles an hour and we've got to hide someplace that we necessarily wouldn't be. But what makes it difficult sometimes is when I have clients that fly in from out of town and they're here for 3 or 4 days. Nobody's going to want to sit in the hotel, you know, for a day. So when clients are local, you know, we can postpone things or reschedule. But when people fly in from out of town and I have to go out on the water and on those real bad days, it can be tough. I was just talking with the fellows with me here. I had a group come from San Diego April 7 through 10, and we never caught a smallmouth bass. We had to go to the inland lakes because the weather was so bad.
Ooh.
So
and
that can happen.
Well,
you know?
And how were the guys? Were they? I mean, they were disappointed, of course.
A dozen times.
Okay.
They, you know, they've seen the best and they've seen the worst. So it can happen. I mean, that's the kind of rolling the dice on a big water trip. It's you know, the wind and weather can really wreck things for you, and it can also give you some of the best fishing, you know, that you're going to have for smallmouth here.
What do you do when you've got a day, when you've got 3-footers out there and you've got people in town who really need to fish? I mean, how do you work with that? How do you change your tactics? How do you change your location?
Well, number one, you've got to, you know, I don't have my boat in a slip. I trailer it every day, so that gives you a lot of flexibility. You know, if we've got a really hard north wind, we may have to fish you know, an anchor bay to hide from it, or I fish you know, the north shore of Lake Erie a lot, and that would give you protection from the wind. So, I mean, the thing that I look at, you know, every night is wind direction and wind speed, and that determines where I'm going to launch and techniques I'm going to use and all that sort of stuff. So the wind is the biggest factor out here.
And we've had a lot of northeast this year. How has that affected you?
It was a really cold spring, so you know, the fish are still spawning out here, believe it or not, and it's that cool spring has sort of prolonged the easy fishing. So we're here at the end of June, and I think we've caught, I don't know, 30 or so already today, 35, and we're only halfway through our day.
Wow. Hang tight, Gerry. I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Captain Gerry Gostenik of Great Lakes Bass Fishing Guide Service. His website, greatlakesbassfishing.com, greatlakesbassfishing.com. When we come back, I want to follow up on what Gerry just said about water temps, about fishing for spawning fish, and much more, because when it comes to bass fishing in Michigan, this guy is an absolute expert, and he is an icon. And that's one of the reasons I'm talking with him right now on Outdoor Magazine. Gerry Gostenik, Great Lakes Bass Fishing Guide Service, greatlakesbassfishing.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across this great state of Michigan, including WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM. In St. Joe, WSJM, 94.9 FM. And in Traverse City, WTCM 580 AM. The segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. But it's not just for landscape projects, big projects, small projects. But what about maintenance? What about mowing? What about trimming? They're going to come out and trim our ornamental trees at the corner of the house. We've had them involved in so many different projects, actually since we moved into this new house about 10 years ago. And every time they have been at the house, they have done a wonderful job. They have been extraordinarily conscientious. The guys are hard-working crews, and I don't care what the weather is. They can be out there when it's 90 and muggy like it was, and they would be out there working hard, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that when somebody comes to my place, they take my property and my projects seriously, and Reader does that. And that's one of the reasons they've been in business for 60 years. Reader Landscaping is the website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, check out my website, please, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. But make sure you take a look at this website, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. GreatLakesBassFishing.com is the website of Gerry Gostenik and his guide service, Great Lakes Bass Fishing, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line as he is on Lake St. Clair with some customers. Did our cell hold up during the break, Gerry?
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent. I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
I appreciate that. So what are you doing today? What is the tactic? What's the technique?
Well, we've got this hot weather's finally out of here. But we have kind of about a 10-mile-an-hour northeast chop out here. So we're basically just drifting drop shot rigs today, and good technique for the wind we have here.
And you say, surprisingly, there are still some fish spawning.
There are. We had a really cool. Real cool spring. Now it got hot quick here the last 3 days.
Yeah.
The water temperature is 73.9, but that jumped up about 8 or 9 degrees there just in that heat wave we had early this week.
That is interesting, and I think it's probably because Lake St. Clair is so shallow, but that 3 days of miserable weather could bring the water temp up that much.
Yeah, I mean, it was cooking out here even yesterday. It was 95 degrees, and when, the surface temp gets warm real quick when it's like that.
And you've got to figure a fish who lives in that environment that is a cold-blooded critter, when they see that much of a difference in their environment, that's substantial. That's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, but if a fish is spawning and the water's 65, let's say, and then boom, it's not going to change their location. And once they're sort of committed to doing that, but what will happen here is it'll accelerate, the mayfly hatch here, and it'll sort of, it'll move things along a lot quicker as far as fish getting, done spawning and sort of transitioning out to where they're going to be in the summertime.
When you get a mayfly hatch like you have there on Lake St. Clair, how does that affect things? If you've got a fish slurping on mayflies all night long, how do you go out in the morning and catch them?
They bite. The bass bite really well during this time. I mean, really, really well. So we sort of adjust our techniques. And today it's a little bit too windy, but typically when the flies are hatching and you've got calm conditions, a lot of times out here you can see them coming up like trout. I mean, they don't smash the flies, they just sip them, like a trout would. But it's a really good time of the year for topwater fishing if you can get the conditions right.
That's what I was wondering. If you switch to a topwater, then what a riot that's got to be.
It is, but on this big wide open lake, it's not easy to get it calm enough for that. So when it does happen, and I'll get a half dozen really good days of that every season. But today, that's just not in play. mean, it's not rough out, but we've got a 1.5-foot chop here.
So if I book a trip with you on Lake St. Clair bass fishing, should I be expecting numbers or size of fish?
I would say numbers with, the hopes of catching a big one, but most of the big fish come, if that's what you're specifically targeting, you're going to want to come before the fish spawn or late in the fall. So the biggest fish get caught, from April until about mid-May, and then again from about mid-October to, till the ice comes. Fishing's really good here late in the year. Like deer season time of the year. Their fishing's really good.
Do you get people, is it hard to get clients that time of year?
No, because once they've been out and experienced how good the fishing is at that time of the year, then they're sold, and they know that, we may or may not go out, and those trips we sort of, we book the date knowing that we may go just because of the weather. So, but I had my personal best day ever on the lake here was first week of November 2016. We caught 234 in one day.
In one day?
In one day. And left them biting. So that's what can happen at that time of the year.
Oh, my gosh. That's nonstop.
Right. And that's a big fish time of the year, too.
What is a big Michigan smallmouth?
I would say the 6-pound mark is sort of trophy status. We catch, I might catch 100 5-pounders in a year, like true 5-pounders, and I might only have 3 or 4 6s. So.
But still, a 5-pound smallie is a big
and
fish.
Those are weighed on an official scale, not just, hey, that's a 6-pounder.
Yeah. Why, stupid question, and I apologize, again, forgive me, I'm not a bass fisherman. Are you not targeting largemouth because they aren't there in numbers, or you just prefer to fish for smallies?
No, people don't hire me to go largemouth fishing. And, we may have to if we get some bad wind and somebody's here for 3 or 4 days, but they don't like the open water that the smallmouths do for the most part. You'll find them up, like Walpole Island area, up in the marshes and up in Anchor Bay where there's a lot of weed growth. Out here on the main lake, it's mostly just sand grass, and it's not real suitable for largemouth.
So are there people who go out and target largemouth, or it's not a thing on Lake St. Clair?
Oh, they do. And I do once in a while. It's fun, but for the most part, I don't fish for them a whole lot here.
You do.
Guys aren't going to come from Texas to catch largemouth.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
they can do that at home.
Yes, I finally got that through my skull. Now I get what you're saying. The people who come in from out of state want to take advantage of this special Lake St. Clair smallmouth fishery.
Right.
Gotcha. You also do trips occasionally on inland lakes, like you'll go up north, won't you?
Burt and mullet are probably, our premier. Lake Charlevoix too, are probably the premier inland smallmouth fisheries.
And how is that experience different?
Well, you're not going to catch as many up there. You're just not. Burt and mullet have big fish in them, but they just don't have the volume of fish. A good day up there might be 25. That's an average day here. But there's big fish in those places, so it's totally different. You do a lot of drift fishing on Burt and mullet. It's more active casting, fishing the drop-offs. I would say the fishing's a little bit more difficult there too.
So
here it's this is a great lake for people of all skill levels. You can just drift a drop shot and catch them. even if you're a beginning angler, you can have a lot of success here. And that I'd say that's not true on Burt Lake and Mullet Lake. You know, not everybody wants to throw jerk baits all day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more technique specific on the inland bodies of water than it is here.
I'm just thinking about this open water experience on Lake St. Clair, and you get a 4-pound smallmouth on the end of the line. That's got to be a riot.
Yeah, they for their size, you know, for a freshwater fish, they're great fighters.
Do you ever find yourself fishing for something else? Do you ever get a day where say, you know what, I've had enough of this, I'm going to go target muskies or walleye?
I do walleye trips in the river occasionally. Not as many as I used to. You know, April's become a real popular month, you know, for me and my clients. And then, you know, and that's a popular time in the Detroit River for the walleye too. But I think I did 10 walleye trips this year.
Gotcha.
So,
well, I will. I'm going to let you get back to your fishing, but I'm going to encourage people, if they are interested in a Lake St. Clair bass fishing trip, to get in touch with you, Captain Gerry Gostenik of Great Lakes Bass Fishing Guide Service. The website, greatlakesbassfishing.com, greatlakesbassfishing.com. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'll look forward to talking again, Cap.
all right, Mike, I appreciate you having me on.
Always a pleasure. Gerry Gostenik of Great Lakes Bass Fishing. He is the man on Lake St. Clair. I have fished Lake St. Clair probably, maybe 8-10 different times. A couple of times actually for smallmouth, twice for walleye, and the rest for muskies. And the thing about Lake St. Clair that I find absolutely... well, several things. Number one, the boat traffic. If you get out there at the wrong time of day and the wrong day of the week, you're going to have a lot of boat traffic. The fact that it is a shallow lake. When I was out there bass fishing with a couple of guys, it was crystal clear. I mean, crystal clear. You could see the bottom in 20 feet of water. And that was the first time I'd ever had that kind of experience in, shallow water like that. I'm not talking like Lake Michigan or something. And it was a very, very cool experience. It's a world-class fishery, and it is a fish factory. Gerry Gostenik, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, a couple more things I need to talk about that I want to make sure I get to before we run out of time, and then we will wrap up this week's show with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. Thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. You can hear the show on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan, including WIOS in Tawas. That's 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear the show twice each weekend on WIOS, and you can hear us twice each weekend on WSGW in Saginaw. That's 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. But you know this by now. For these 3 hours, I have dubbed this small corner of this studio, of this part of the building, the Outdoor Magazine studio. And Charlie Rood, who is in here with me, says, all right, he has granted me the authority. And Charlie's like the top dog here. Whatever Charlie says goes. And Charlie said, you can call this part of the building the Outdoor Magazine studio for those 3 hours. If I tried to extend it to 3 hours and 20 minutes, he would not allow me. But 3 hours, I can get away with. And, Charlie, I want you to look out the window. What do you see? Is there anybody out there? I can't tell from... there is a big crowd? Okay, excellent. And they're chanting, Charlie, Charlie. I wish that I would get to that point in my career where people, we're talking about crowds, would follow me around and chant my name. That is, hey, Art Lewis in the Michigan Broadcast Hall of Fame. I would rather have people follow me around and chant my name like you, Charlie Rood. Jonathan Dent can only hope to reach that level of adoration. I love busting Charlie's chops because he is such a great guy, such a nice guy. All right, so what's on my list here? Isn't it hard to believe that next weekend is the 4th of July? Charlie and I were just talking about this during the break. I honestly do not know. It's a cliche, right, that time flies. But I feel like the older I get, the faster it goes. I mean, it's like this big freight train just coming your direction. Okay. Did you get a Michigan Bear tag? You might have. You might have. 6,300 people did. Now 73,000 people applied, but 6,300 got tags. Did you get a Michigan elk tag? No, you didn't, because nobody does. Well, okay, 260 somebodies did, but 60,000 people did not. I always joke around it. Nobody gets a Michigan elk tag. But, of course, some people do get a Michigan elk tag, and you can't get one unless you apply. That's why I apply every year. Honestly, I apply every year to get a Michigan elk tag, knowing I'm not going to get a Michigan elk tag. But I keep applying. Is that the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? But I keep doing it. That's okay, because I know that I will eventually get my Michigan elk tag by winning the Pure Michigan Hunt. And that is going to happen here very soon. I can feel it. And I've already applied like 5 times this year to it, and I'm going to keep applying. Okay, what else? The second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp is coming up fast now, like way fast. That is Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch in beautiful Ogemaw County. And there's still, as we are in the studio right now, there are still spots available, but I really think we're going to have a full field of 144 golfers. If you would like to join us as a golfer or a sponsor of the event, I would welcome that participation. Go to the website mucc.org/golf. mucc.org/golf. And again, this is not, I'm working with MUCC on this, but this is not a blanket fundraiser for MUCC. Not that I would be against that, but this in particular is to get kids involved in the outdoors. I mean, what better thing can we do in today's world than encouraging young people to get involved in the outdoors? And the thing I like about MUCC's youth camp is it's very broad-based. It's not just for kids who already come from families who are in the outdoor lifestyle. But here's the part that I really love. Every year sees kids come to that camp who are not from an outdoor family. They have not grown up hunting or fishing or shooting or trapping. In fact, I hear stories about these kids coming to their camp and going, I've never seen stars before, because they live in the city and there's all the light pollution. And when they look up in the sky, all they see is light from streetlights. When I hear a story like that, it's like, I'm all in. I will do whatever I can reasonably to raise money for that cause. And that's why we're having the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing. Go to mucc.org/golf on that one, mucc.org/golf. Speaking of raising money, I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, but I don't want to leave you hanging. Last week I had Chris Durson of Rapid River Knives on the show. We're talking about this Mike Avery signature edition of the Rapid River knife. This is also a fundraiser. It's to raise money for a group called Outdoor Driven. We want to get first responders and veterans who have dealt with crap, and they dealt with that crap for us, defending us, protecting us, and showing up to help us when we needed it. Outdoor Driven helps those people through these situations by getting them involved in the outdoors. The Rapid River knife, all proceeds from that will go to that cause. Now, Chris said we were going to have a prototype to take a look at to order by the first week in July. I don't think that's going to happen because I threw him a curveball. And the more we looked at it, the specific design I was looking at did not lend itself to being made in the volume that we're going to need. So we've had to tweak the design just a little bit. Chris is very open to working with me. He's been a great guy to work with. That's coming up soon, but it's probably not going to be next week. So keep an eye out for that, and keep an ear out for Dixie Dave coming up after the break. Well, it's that time again. That time you've been waiting for 3 hours. You tuned into this show at the beginning of the show, almost 3 hours ago. And all the conversations, all the talk, all the comments have led up to this. The way we wrap up each week's show with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Minar. The culmination, the pinnacle, the apex of every outdoor magazine show. David, welcome back.
Thanks for the build-up, Mike. Wow, how are you doing? You're full of it today.
I'm full of something, yeah. How you doing, buddy?
Real good. Enjoying the weather, huh?
I'm enjoying the cooler weather, that's for sure. And now the forecast for this weekend looks like it's going to get hot again, so I don't know. But like my wife Denise said, look, we griped about it being so cold for so long that she's not going to complain about a little heat. But you know what? I am, so we're even. What do you got for us, David?
Well, we got a fish recipe this week, as we said we were going to do last week. We have the coconut walleye, and that's on page 12 of the cookbook, if anybody's following along. So we need about 8 ounces of boneless, skinless filet per person, a cup of shredded coconut, quarter cup of chopped pecans, half a jar of chicken gravy, a couple ounces of coconut liquor, a couple ounces of tropical schnapps, a tablespoon of chopped parsley, 2 beaten eggs. Beat them up real good so that they're very nicely blended. And if you want it spicy, sweet and spicy, I'd add a little bit of cayenne pepper. But it's up to the individual person doing the cooking. A couple ounces of heavy cream and 2 tablespoons of garlic butter. And you can see that on page 2, or just make your own. So you're going to dredge the fish in flour, then in the beaten up eggs, and then roll it in coconut. You want to take kind of like milk off some of that beaten up egg so too much of the coconut doesn't stick on it. So you want to coat the fillets about medium heavy, not too heavy because they'll just fall off anyways. So in a medium hot pan, you want to not get too hot because the coconut will burn or blacken real easy. So in a medium hot pan, brown the fish 1 or 2 at a time and remove to oven-proof casserole. And then you're going to bake this at 350 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes. So you want to make sure the coconut is not black, and 350 is going to be pretty safe bet. So it can brown or blacken real easy. So you just want to make it nice and tan when you're doing this. So when you're finished, taking the fillets out, wipe the pan with a paper towel, add the gravy, the schnapps, coconut liquor, pecans, heavy cream, half the parsley, pepper if you're going to use pepper, and some garlic butter. When boiling, set it on the side because you should be just about getting done with the fish in the oven. So what you want to do is when the fish is done and the sauce is done, you want to make a pool of sauce on each plate and take a spatula and remove the fish and put it on top of the sauce. So it makes a real nice presentation and it looks great. And sprinkle a little bit of parsley on it. And man, oh man, I'll tell you what, it looks great. And I would serve this with a fluffy rice or maybe or asparagus spears or something of your liking.
I remember. Yeah, I remember this one. It's outstanding.
Yeah, we did this for the show, too.
Absolutely, we
Almost
did.
all of these recipes we've done for the show, 200 of them.
Well, because we did so many over the years, yeah, I remember most of these. You said something that got my attention that I'm still hanging up on. You said sweet and spicy. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking sweet and spicy. Those are like opposite ends of the spectrum, aren't they? Or no?
Oh, no. There's a lot of dishes that we had done in the past that it was spicy and a little sweeter, and this is one of them. So it's really a nice way to top off the walleye with that sauce like that. Or you could, if you wanted to omit the cayenne pepper or dash of white pepper, whatever you're going to use, by all means do it and just use it as is.
And make sure, as with all fish, don't overcook them. Remember, it's going to cook after you take it off the heat.
Exactly. So you just want to nice and tan the coconut. You want to make it too dark. You want it nice and tan, and then that coconut will stick on the flesh of the fish real good. So,
real quick before I let you go, because we're almost out of time. How do you tell when fish is done? Is it a texture thing or is it a color thing?
It could be both, actually, because the texture, if you press on it and it feels like it's got a lot of give to it, it's still raw. And if it firms up, then that means it's pretty well done.
Excellent. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Excellent recipe, excellent advice. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk next week.
All right, go fishing, Mike.
I'm working on it. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. As are you. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show. And I had a birthday this last week, so I'm a year older, but I'm not a year closer to retiring. I don't think so. I love what I'm doing. I appreciate your support, and as long as God allows, I will stay at this microphone each week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle, right here in the great state of Michigan. My name is Mike Avery. This is Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.